One of them we want to get to is Hertz. They reported their results. It was a second quarter loss, but it was smaller than expected. So here to break it down for us is Jody Lurie, Bloomberg Intelligence credit analyst. Jody, thanks for joining us. So it was smaller than what analysts expected, I guess. So that is good news, correct?
It's good news in that, yeah, I mean, if you set the bar low, it's much easier to pass it.
Yes.
Now,
that's my whole life, Jody. I've been doing that.
I think you're selling yourself short. But I think the story for Hertz is such a complicated one, to say the least. And the devil is in the details. So, you look at it and you say, oh, EBITDA was 1 million. So they technically broke even in EBITDA, which is a big, tremendous feat. But then if you start digging into the numbers of how they kind of got to, operating cash flow being positive, how they got to a bunch of the different components, and you say, well, there's a little bit more nuance to it that I think will play out over the coming year.
How bad is their credit profile here, Jody? I'm looking at the FA function, and I'm old school. I kind of go, kind of net debt to EBITDA. Oy vey. Mm-hmm. What's going on there?
So the problem with Hertz, and this is also true for Avis, is that you have to look at it separating out the auto-related debt. They have a whole section of debt that's asset-backed securities that are financing their vehicles. If you separate that out, you then have their standard debt and their corporate EBITDA. Now, even looking at that, that's not positive at the moment. Where Hertz benefits is their covenants, so the requirements they have with their lenders, is they have a first lien leverage requirement that they've received some modification on, some cushion on, as they work through these issues. Now, there is kind of a definition, a legal definition component to it that makes it hard for us to really back into what that legal definition EBITDA is versus what you see as their corporate adjusted EBITDA, which would not fit the requirements.
What can you tell us about their results as far as, let's say, leisure customers versus corporate government customers?
Right. So Lisa, I mean, I think what's more fascinating about the situation is how they've commented on utilization of their vehicles at large. That was a large component of the call. And when you think about it, part of it is they've scaled down their fleet. So as, say government jobs have been scaling down, as consumers have been pulling back, they've also been scaling down their fleet, which may be a positive for them. But where that's a negative is obviously, if you show up at a rental car facility and they don't have your vehicle, that's a problem. So it's a bit more complicated than that. So much of their services are on airport. And depending on how the airlines see the next few quarters, I think that will dictate Hertz and Avis's demand. Now, Hertz did say on their call that they're seeing good bookings and, advance of what they've anticipated going into third and fourth quarter. And so they are hinting towards positive for them. But I think where it gets a little bit more complicated is as you think about 2026, as tariffs are in effect, as it's harder to access vehicles, as vehicle pricing sort of shifts, when you start folding in 2026 vehicles into the fleet, that's where they really have to show that they've learned from their past mistakes. And I'm not quite convinced they're there yet.
I mean, we all know, Avis, Hertz, but it's kind of the two big ones, but there's budgets out there. I mean, there's a lot of car rental companies out there when you go to the airport. Are there too many in this industry? Should this industry consolidate even more?
So, Paul, I think what's most interesting is it's fake competition, right? Because Avis and Budget are one company. Hertz
right.
has Dollar and Thrifty, right? And Enterprise even has their, they have segmented, right? And so while, yes, there's a lot of names out there, there's actually three major players.
Gotcha.
What we are seeing is Six is starting to grow. We're also seeing Turo, which is, as people like to describe it, the Airbnb of car rental services. So you have your own personal car sitting in a garage in New York City and you say, I don't use it that much, but I might as well make some income on it. Let me rent it out to somebody who's visiting the city and wants to use a car. And so that's been slowly taking away some of the volume. And what we've been tracking is, if you look at Bloomberg second measure data, that's one of the few places that I can find where you can get data on Six and Turo, which are not public, as well as on Enterprise, which is a multi-generation family-owned company. And so you're seeing Turo slowly creep into Hertz's
Really? I never knew that.
business operations, and
my
they've
son was
been
talking
competing
about
for
that. He's
volumes.
like, I should lend my car out because it just sits there sometimes.
I
When other
don't know.
people pay me to
guess if
use
you're
my car.
renting out your house or a room in your house, why not your car? I guess. I don't know. All right, Jody, we learn something new every time we chat with you. Jody Lurie, senior credit analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. She follows all the leisure companies, and we pay her to do that, believe it or not. So she goes on cruises and she goes to hotels and
Not a
all that
bad
kind of.
gig.
It's a good gig, and she does a great job. I appreciate getting a few minutes of her time.